And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford from Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and Game Source. We truly appreciate everyone out there listening to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give us that 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. We truly appreciate it. Plus, if you can like, subscribe, follow, whatever you can do to support us here at the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, NBA Draft Junkies, plus also as well, if you can also support the great stuff that Rafael does with NBA Draft Junkies and the Run the Floor podcast, and also as well, LakerHolics.com. It is truly appreciated. Well, a great win for the Lakers. They took care of the Houston Rockets 4-1 with a blowout of the Rockets, 119-96. The Lakers started off fast, got up to a 21-point lead. It came down as far as a punch right back from Houston early in the second quarter to right down to 7. But after that, it was all Lakers. They focused very well on the defensive side of the ball and got a lot of great shooting, over 50%, 51% for the ball game from the three-point area. 52% all from the field. Just truly a great performance all around. LeBron did have 29. Anthony Davis only chipped in with 13. 6 players in double figures today. And here today to talk about everything going on, including Rajon Rondo's brother, our 3 great guests indeed. We're going to start off with my good friend. You find him everywhere when it comes to the NBA draft, and especially at his great site, NBA Draft Junkies. Got to go ahead and not only check his site, NBADraftJunkies.com, but look at him right here. All the rows and rows and rows, if you're watching on Facebook Live, of videos right there for you at NBA Draft Junkies. And plus his Run the Floor podcast as well, which you can get everywhere you get your podcasts. It is Rafael Barlowe. And Rafael, man, that was... I don't know. Would you say that they figured out everything? I mean, you had said before a couple games ago that the Lakers had figured out what the Rockets are going to do, and they had already figured them out. But really, this game proved it that they just figured out the Rockets in whole.
Yeah, I mean, like I said yesterday and the day before, the series ended with LeBron's blocks in the third quarter 2 games ago. Once it took away the Rockets' willingness to really attack the rim, it made it hard for them to get their shooters open. And it was at that point for me. And I think I mentioned yesterday, either 2 things are going to happen. The Lakers are going to lay down and Houston is going to catch them slipping, or it's going to be a 20 or 30 point blowout. And it actually kind of happened. Everything happened in the game in a sense. But yeah, I mean, Houston just didn't have the same energy that they came out with earlier in the series. And I just think, like, other than, a few, maybe like 2 quarters, maybe was it the second quarter this game and the fourth quarter last game. But other than that, ever since Bron had those 2 blocks, I mean, it was just total domination by the Lakers.
It was total domination by the Lakers, and it was great to see, if you're a Lakers fan, just see the collective effort today from the Lakers as a whole. And I'll tell you what, it was just awesome to see. Also with us today is he's one of the blog editors from LakerHolics.com. Be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.com. It is Jamie Sweet. Jamie, a great win by the Lakers, and also as well just a way that they could go ahead and put a stamp on this round. Looks like their stamp on small ball, and they weren't caught looking ahead to the next round.
No, they certainly weren't. They didn't pull Clippers. They didn't fall asleep at the wheel or let the game drift away from them when it was all on the line. The thing is that was interesting about tonight's game was that the Rockets kind of played their own game, and they weren't able to ever get anything going. And that was the Sorry about that. That's my it's bath time here at Casa Dolce. The Rockets actually kind of played their game more than they did the last two. You know, they outshot us. They had more possessions, which is how they had to win. They didn't make enough shots with those possessions, which is why they lost. And you know, there's the thing that was kind of eye-popping to me was, other than Westbrook and I think Jeff Green, not a single Houston player scored even in double digits. And that's just a lockdown. It's just a, you know, when you have that kind of chokehold on another team's offense, they ought not to win. And you know what we saw was, you know, everybody hyped this series at the beginning as a clash of two styles. And you know, I've always said that Mike D'Antoni is either a pretty good regular season coach, could be a great college coach. I really think his style of basketball would fit better with the college game. I have never thought he was a coach that coached for the playoffs or had a style that would be successful in the playoffs. People will be like, oh, well, Miami, like, kind of, you know, embraced small ball when they won. And, you know, LeBron is, you know, one of the best small ball players, but he is so disparaging of the big man. And I don't mean like just a 7-footer. I mean like players who do big man things. It's always been mind-boggling to me, like how you could just kind of like cut off a part of the game and be like, and now we're going to be better. Like it's just never jived with my basketball worldview, and it still doesn't today for obvious reasons. And, you know, hats off to the Rockets. They had a great regular season. James Harden is probably the best one-on-one scorer, certainly of this modern generation, probably one of the top 5 all time.
He did show up today, 30 points. The only real Rocket to show up today with any consistency
or energy. Like he, you know, and it's got to be exhausting. You know, you can't be the best scorer and guard the other player's center if you're not Shaquille O'Neal or Tim Duncan or like another equally skilled big guy. Like you're just going to get beat down. And he looked beat down. That whole team looked beat down. They have for about 2 games. They, like any drowning man, you know, caught a couple of breaths of air before they went under, but you know, you know, Rafael said it best when he talked about those 2 kind of, you know, series defining blocks, that defensive willpower that LeBron imposed on the series. And that was the identity of the series. Like that, the narrative never changed after that. You never talked about Houston's incredible offense or the undefendable James Harden step back 3. Like those aren't that's not talked about. Like it didn't happen. You never saw it.
Whether it was a soft trap or a hard trap, they were just trying to go ahead and throw anything that they could at Harden to try and get him off his game.
And they did. That was, you know, credit Frank Vogel, credit the players for buying into what Vogel was telling them and executing it on the court. You know, it's one thing to say it in the locker room, to say you're going to do it in the locker room. You know, the Rockets in the first game were talking about how they talk about defense now. And then, you know, PJ Tucker and James Harden were like, you know, we've got a whole game plan. And it lasted 1 whole game, which was our rust game. And they never even got enough going to win a second game like I thought they would. Same thing happened against Portland. I've called 6. I'm happy to be wrong when it's less games and not more. But anyways, you know, very excited. Lakers back in the Western Conference Finals.
First time in 10 years.
So long. So I'm stoked. I'm stoked. I was going to wear my Christmas Laker hat, but it's a little warm here, and so never mind. It's too hot.
Okay, fair enough, indeed. Also with us today is a good man indeed. He is the mastermind behind LakerHolics.com. You got to be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.com. Not only do you see great videos from my good friend Rafael Barlowe, not only do you see podcasts from a good friend myself, you also see great articles from Jamie Sweet, who does the 5 things. You also see great articles from the Magic Man, Sean Grice, and also numerous articles from my good friend indeed. It is LakerTom. And LakerTom, it was just a tremendous performance. I'd have to put it in the top 5 best performances of the Lakers this season.
Yeah, I think it was a statement game, basically, especially after the Clippers had stumbled and allowed the Nuggets to come back. I have a whole different look at the game and a different approach than Jamie does. And
I figured you would.
the two of us go back. Actually, the two of us have been going back and forth with this for a couple of decades.
What are you talking about? Baby.
They know I'm old, and now that I said that, they know that you're old too. I tell you, I didn't think this was a battle of two styles. I thought this was a battle of who played the small ball best. And frankly, I've always been a fan of Mike D'Antoni, and as great a coaching job as Frank Vogel did in this playoffs. If you gave Mike D'Antoni the Lakers roster and Frank Vogel the Rockets roster, I think the results would have been the same. What the Lakers did in this series was really something special, especially from a coach who had not made a single lineup change for his starting lineup all season long that wasn't the result of an injury. And for him to turn around in the middle of the playoffs, in the middle of the second round, and bench JaVale McGee and put in Markieff Morris, and not only put him in, but actually on offense and defense to totally change their whole approach. The move sped up the defense so that it had the speed and quickness to really challenge people and get the Rockets off of the 3-point line. He ran them off of the 3-point line. Like Rafael said, the blocks by LeBron, the blocks from the whole team. I mean, you saw blocks on 3-point shots here as guys challenging them. And the speed with which they made the rotations and the way that they played the passing lanes. This is a defense that we're going to see the rest of the way for the Lakers, and it's the defense that they need to be champions. And then on top of it, he pulled a D'Antoni on D'Antoni and played 5 out the last 2 games. And that's why we dominated everything from an offensive end. That's why you saw all of these cutters getting passes inside and LeBron getting to the basket whenever he wanted to. And AD not having, he didn't have a great game this game, but he was passing the ball like LeBron at the early part of it. He had 4 assists in the first quarter. So the big question going forward, there was a great discussion by Van Gundy and the announcers basically of whether Morris was going to stay in the lineup. And I've been touting this all day on Lakerholics.com that Jamie's been countering it all day. But I think that there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that the lineup that is going to play the rest of the lineup that's going to go out against the Clippers is this same lineup that started the last 2 games. They have everything that you really need. They're going to play Zubac off of the floor. They're going to spread the thing out so that LeBron and AD really are not stopped by the clogging of the lane and the drop coverage that the Clippers normally use as their primary defense. And I have to give a lot of credit to Frank Vogel. He basically took everything that Mike D'Antoni had put together offensively and defensively, of a rugged, quick switching defense that was really going to, hassle everybody. And he turned that around on the Rockets and shut them down. And then he spread the Lakers out 5 out and basically made them just destroyed what had been before, I think through game 1 was the number 1 defense in the bubble for the playoffs. And he totally decimated that defense. So it's going to be an interesting matchup with the Clippers. I'm hoping the Nuggets can take them to another game and maybe even a game 7. I'd much prefer to play the Nuggets from a win-loss standpoint, but as I said many times, I think great teams and great performances come from great competition. So I want to see the Clippers be the next team that we beat, and I'm looking for the Celtics in the playoffs. I want to see the bubble finals end with the Lakers beating the Celtics.
Well, I think Miami is going to have something to say about that on a personal note. I just think that
Celtics in 6.
I'd say Miami in 7, but I'll just go with that. I want to say right now, I want to give a big shout out to all the Facebook groups, the sports podcasters groups, all the great basketball groups, and of course, all the great Lakers groups. Tens of thousands of fans that are actually hopefully will be catching our show here or have caught our show. I want to thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. I want to give a shout out also as well to Rafael, Jamie, and LakerTom for sticking with us throughout the playoffs here. Got something mentioned on the private. Jimmy B indeed, from Jamie right there. Big Jimmy Butler fan right there for you. But I have a feeling, he knows. I have a feeling I know which way he's going to go when it comes to the Miami series. But Rafael, getting back to what's going on here with the Rockets and the Lakers, D'Antoni's a free agent. Mm-hmm. His future is now undecided. Small ball proved for the Rockets that it wasn't exactly where they wanted to go and wouldn't exactly get the result that they wanted to. I want to hear your thoughts on if they should continue to process. It looks still, according to already the inclinations we're seeing from Woj and things of that nature, that they might still commit to this small ball long term. Will they do it with D'Antoni or will they go with someone else?
I don't know. It's tough. It sounds like the ball is in D'Antoni's court. I mean, at least I felt, at least the information that I thought we had was that they didn't offer him an extension and that he was a lame duck coach because they didn't offer him anything. But the latest reports that I heard, I guess I forgot which game it was, is that they want him back. It's just it's up to him if he wants to come back. So he may be looking for a fresh start. I mean, I had tweeted, this Rockets team reminds me somewhat of the Mavs teams in the early to mid 2000s where, they had their franchise guy and they kept changing pieces around him and they just couldn't get over the hump. In Dirk's case, the Mavericks weren't better than the Spurs or the Lakers at that time. And in Harden's case, he wasn't able to get past the Warriors, which nobody was. And then
Dirk did win one.
Well, yeah, that's why I said, until he got to that point, because, remember how, just think if Twitter was around or social media was around like it is today when the Mavs had the number 1 seed and lost.
Yeah, that's true.
And, people were calling for the Mavs to break up that team. And, remember they put rosters together that had like Antoine Walker, Antoine Jameson on the team at the same time. And they just couldn't get past that hump. And so this Houston situation kind of reminds me of that because, if you think about the year the Mavs won, they struggled in the first round against Portland. And then after that, you guys are Laker fans, so you remember what happened after that. But it took like a miraculous, crazy run for Dirk to kind of get his respect. And I think Harden may be in the same situation because this Lakers team is probably going to be around for years. Golden State is going to be back in the mix next year. And, Harden is probably going to be, and Houston is probably going to be the 4th best team going forward. And, you factor in the Clippers, give or take, and it's going to be tough for them to get over the hump. Maybe a coaching change. I don't know. I think Harden has to change some of his habits. He may have to.
That team has to get younger because that team is getting
they're
older.
Pretty old. Yeah. But I think their age, a lot of it is Tyson Chandler. He brings up the average age also. But from a roster construction, I don't know much. I don't know how much they can do.
PJ Tucker is 35?
Yep.
At this, yeah. And then Harden is over 30. Harden's game is an old man's game anyway, so he's not based on athleticism. So I think he's got many more years in the league to come. We've got a comment here from Content Creators 805.
Where's
Welcome
he at?
back. I know we were looking for you, man. We were looking for you. It was like NBA 2K cheat code tonight. Yes, it was a great night indeed for Lakers fans. Still want to get you on the show, man. So let me know when you can come by, CC805. But it was a great time indeed for Lakers fans. The future is still uncertain. I know, Jamie, you had kind of snickered before we head on to Rondo, Westbrook, and that whole situation. But I know you kind of snickered when when LakerTom mentioned that he had thought that if you swapped coaches, you would still get the same result. I'm sort of in that camp because of the players involved, because I think the Lakers top two were simply that much better in the right spots. They're larger, they're faster, more athletic than what Harden and Westbrook could provide. And obviously you saw that time and time again. Westbrook couldn't get it done today. And I'm thinking that if you had both coaches swap out, I think you still would have gotten the same result. You shook your head no. Why was that the case?
Well, because I think that I mean, for all his talk, and Mike D'Antoni is a big talker about defense, but he just doesn't have teams that commit to it. Nor does he come up with schemes that take the other team out of what they want to do ever. Like at best, they seem to like adapt or adopt some higher level defensive principles, like, oh, we'll switch to a zone here, or we'll do a switch everything scheme here. And that's those are all kind of great things for the regular season. That's going to get you a lot of regular season victories. It's going to look good. It's going to be flashy. But in the playoffs, you need to have a defense that can take the other team out of what they want to do, like our defense did. And that's the players didn't just like communicate on the court the whole time and like decide, they did a little bit. I'm not saying the players had nothing to do with it. It's a collaborative effort. The coaches can only say to do the things they want you to do, and then it's on the players to go out and do it. And improvise, right? Just because you have these schemes doesn't mean the other team's just going to trot into your scheme and do what you want. So it's on the players to impose their will on the other team. I just think Frank Vogel is a better defensive coach than Mike D'Antoni, and when it comes to the playoffs,
no doubt about it. No doubt about that. I don't disagree with that.
And a defense wins championships.
D'Antoni's a better offensive coach.
But that doesn't matter in the playoffs, or it matters less. It's. I mean, obviously, yes, you have to outscore the opponent, but you're not gonna. It's not always going to be a shootout at the OK Corral. Sometimes it's going to be a mud fight. Like Woodstock in the '90s. It's gonna. There's a bunch of different ways that has to go down, and I just think that Vogel coaches from a place of. And this is a bit of. I don't want to be unfair to Mike D'Antoni because. A lot of coaches, let's take Steve Nash. Steve Nash did not have to work his way through anything at all to become the head coach of the Knicks. And whether that's fair or not, that it doesn't matter. He's a brilliant basketball player. He's a fantastic communicator. He's going to be an improvement, I think, over Derek Fisher and Jeff Hornacek and Frazier.
Got the wrong team.
I know he might have the wrong. I'm actually kind of
the Nets.
Snap! You're right. My bad. The wrong New York.
Well, you're talking about Jacques Vaughn.
Yeah, Jacques Vaughn. My bad.
Although he's going to be the top, most highly paid assistant still to stay with the team. But when you look at it, I think Mike D'Antoni is going to be a wanted individual wherever he's going to go ahead and lay his hat next time. Whether or not he stays with Houston, that's going to be the case. Tom, I know you wanted to interject with something.
Yeah, I just want to add one little thing just to make it clear. First off, I think that Mike D'Antoni is a better offensive coach than Frank Vogel is. I happen to think that Frank Vogel is a much better defensive coach. And if you look at the overall package of communicating with your players and making the types of adjustments on not in his area of specialty that Vogel did, I think he's a better coach. And I'd much rather have Vogel as our coach. I think he's done a fabulous job. The fact that he was able to make adjustments that not only help the offense, but also transform the defense, or not only help the defense, but also transform the offense, which is not his area of specialty, I think was really impressive, especially under the pressure that he was and having not made any other changes in the future.
But this is something that Rafael alluded to, and I'll get to you in a sec, Content Creators 805. This is something that Rafael alluded to earlier. The Rockets are who they are. They only have a certain amount of chess pieces. The Lakers have more chess pieces. They had more to bring to the game.
Sure.
Than
the Rockets basically, if they want to, what the Rockets really have to do is they don't have to necessarily change their style. They need to get more size of the players. That you can't go out there with that Lilliputian squad and expect to beat a team like the Lakers.
Well, I think the Lakers had the
size still matters. Size still matters. Length still matters. Height still matters.
I mean, I think what it boils down to, like in any series, is the Lakers had the two best players.
Yeah.
You switch the coaches out. You swap Vogel and D'Antoni, and the Lakers probably still win.
Yeah.
I mean
What if you give them Kawhi and Paul George? They both can play
I'm not.
small ball.
Yeah,
Yeah, you need the right players to do it that are both defensive players and offensive players. That's the real strength. Harden and Westbrook aren't defenders.
No.
They're
Well,
offensive
I
only.
think Harden is a
Westbrook
much
is.
better.
Well, he's got a
defender
better. He's better than his rep. Let's put it that way. But they're not on the level of the defensive players that LeBron James and Anthony Davis are.
Well, they came into the series though playing better defensively than any other team in the bubble.
In the bubble, which is a small sample size.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a small sample size. It's not, the seeding games where everybody was working their way back into
But that
shape.
also included the Oklahoma City, very tough playoff
Yeah.
series for them. So
That's true.
I'm not trying to say that I don't want Frank Vogel on the team. I don't think LakerTom is trying to say that. I just think that if this series that you had swapped the coaches, like LakerTom had
Players
said,
play, coaches coach.
yeah, I mean, in the end, you have LeBron and AD, the two best players on the best team.
And you can make a case and say Rondo may have been the fourth best player. If you combine them, if you put them all together, you can say LeBron was the best, AD was second, Harden was third. And if I had to pick who I thought was the most impactful player after that, it would be Rondo.
Yeah, agreed.
Let's hope he can continue that.
If you go to 5 or 6 or 7, you might be looking at, Kuzma's defense is completely underrated as far as I'm concerned. And AC's defense is completely underrated. They both had big impacts on this game.
Yeah, they were very much.
Morris has been playing lights out.
Yeah, it's been very good to see the kind of collective effort. So before we go ahead and focus in on tomorrow's game, Jamie Sweet, I want to ask you this real quick. When it comes to the Lakers' lights out shooting and content creators, you're right. Frank Vogel does need to start getting credit because he's done an amazing job. He finally did make the changes that LakerTom was so happy about. He was almost giddy like a teenager when he finally started making the changes. So
6 years of asking for that change.
Exactly.
Lakers play that way.
I know.
But and even Taylor Horton-Tucker, you're right, CT805, that he got some.
He was great.
So maybe he's not the type of player that I was going to think he was going to be, which just like end of the bench fodder. So I'm hoping for some good things with him. He's 19, so he's still got plenty of time to bloom. Still needs to get some things together in his game. But getting back, Jamie Sweet, to what I want to talk about is 51% shooting from the three-point area. I know you can't expect that, especially for a team that did so horridly during the bubble season. But what can the Lakers do to go ahead and continue to create great opportunities and open looks so that at least the percentage stays at a respectable level?
I mean, I think those shots are created because of the incredible ability that we have to score in the paint, and our transition offense is maybe the best, definitely probably the best of who's left in the playoffs right now. The Clippers are probably right there with us, I feel like, just because I think they have better 3-point shooters. I think we have a very kind of league average 3-point shooting team. We have a lot of streaky guys. I don't know that we can. I mean, 51%. I don't think you can expect that. I would like to hope for high 30s, 38, 39. I think if we can shoot around 38, 39% in any series, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win every single basketball game.
I agree.
That we play. When we shoot under 35%, you really got to start pulling away on that points in the paint, or have your defense create a lot of fast breakup opportunities. Doesn't seem like we're going to win too many free throw battles based on the amount of times we get to the line on average, even though LeBron gets whacked on a lot, and that's just how it is. Same thing happened with Shaq, and you just got to play through it. There's something they're not going to get. Refs aren't going to give you everything. NBA is going to give it. You got to fight for it. It's the playoffs, man. I know why I was thinking the Knicks so much, because I was thinking before while Rafael was talking that the Knicks are kind of in a different position where they have all power forwards, and the Rockets all have small forwards and guards here and there. But there's no adjustment. They need to bring in. LT said they need to bring in some size. I thought they got so much worse when they lost Clint Capella. And I know he started rough, and I know he had that ankle injury. I just think that Westbrook needs a guy like Steven Adams who can finish at the rim, who he can like dump the ball off to when he gets in trouble. He's not such a brilliant passer that he can pass all the way out to the 3-point line every time. And those are tough passes for anybody to make. You know, that's a long distance to cover when you're in trouble and you've jumped into the air and you got to get rid of the ball in a split second. So I was like, why was I
let me
thinking
put
of
it this way. If Harden loved the pick and roll with Capella so much,
yeah,
he would have told Morey, I want to keep it.
Well,
not Harden, Westbrook.
They stopped running.
They stopped running pick and rolls, right?
Yeah.
Because if you remember the series that they played well against the Warriors, one of the things that they struggled was when Capella was on the floor because they couldn't run pick and rolls because Draymond was killing the pick and rolls. He was good enough to be there to stop the pick and roll and then take away the lob. And then the next year, that's when they start switching to ISO ball.
Right. But not every team has a Draymond Green on defense. Draymond Green is elite.
Well, Draymond Green when he wants to play. Obviously, he didn't want to play this year. So, but LakerTom, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
Yeah, that the guy I think that they really need is and he may be available as Ben Simmons. Even though he doesn't shoot a three, he is the replacement for Westbrook, who can play great defense, has size, and can get to the hoop as well as anybody in the league.
So you're gifting the Philadelphia 76ers Russell Westbrook for Ben Simmons.
Well, no, I'm saying that if there's a trade to be made and Morey is a genius at putting together a trade, the type of players that he needs to improve the defense and the versatility of the Rockets is a guy like Ben Simmons, even though he won't shoot a three.
Well, I think he may make him worse because in the playoffs, teams know Ben, if he doesn't have the ball, he's going to stand at the dunker spot, and he doesn't want the ball.
Yeah, and you just run that flat two in each corner and put him at the top of the key, and who's going to stop him?
Well, but he doesn't want the ball late in games because he doesn't want to be fouled because he's such a bad free throw shooter.
That is a problem. But he's, I don't think he's going to go through his entire career without shooting threes. I mean,
I do.
Yeah,
he was drafted.
He'll be a Jason Kidd or a Magic Johnson, or somebody like that who will develop a set shot or something. Otherwise, it's such a wasted talent.
I think he's set and adamant on trying to prove people that he doesn't need to. Because think about it, he missed his whole rookie year, and he didn't add a shot there. His second year, third year, this is like his fourth year, and he hasn't added. I don't even think he needs to shoot threes. Just attempt a mid-range or short corner shot. And so if you notice, like when they play good teams,
but he's a perfect fit for the Rockets then, because they don't want anything but layups. They do want free throws. That's a problem.
Yeah,
but no, he's a guy that is such a talented defender and playmaker that there's a place for him on a lot of teams.
Yeah, I think he needs to be a center. And here's the thing that I think with Ben Simmons is I just think he's stubborn and he refuses to work on it because he's trying to prove a point. He has the same agent as LeBron. He could spend a summer working out with LeBron or any of those guys. But I just think he's adamant of trying to prove like I can win my way. And
I'd take him on the Lakers if he wants to prove that.
I'm sure you would. I'm sure most people would take him, but I just think like him and Embiid, this whole other subject, they both were stubborn. Ben refuses to shoot, and Embiid didn't want to get in tip-top shape. And all the comparisons of the next Magic and Kareem, all that stuff, it failed. But, yeah, I just think Ben Simmons is a stubborn guy who just does not want to do what it takes to make his teammates better on the offensive end of the floor.
Content Creators 05 just chipped in. If we beat the Clippers, I want the Celtics to play for tying 17th championship. Obviously, that would be the most prophetic. That's history in the making. Yeah, it would be. I still think Miami's going to get there, just to be honest, because they're playing so well right now, and they've got so much versatility. Like you were talking about earlier, CC805, about what the Lakers can do. They can go big or small. I really like what Miami brings to the table that maybe Boston might not have enough of, but we'll talk about that here in a sec. Jamie, let's go ahead and finish off the Lakers right now as far as the conversation, because they're not going to be playing till at the earliest Wednesday. Here we go again with another long layoff, which has not been advantageous for the team for, count it, 2 rounds now. Is this going to be another detriment, or are they going to find some way to go ahead and be more effective whenever they start, either Wednesday or Friday?
I mean, I don't think it's been disadvantage. If it game one, it's been disastrous. But after that,
that's what great. I mean, they got to get off to, if they can only go ahead and get off to bad starts so many times. You really don't want to go ahead to a Clippers, or let's say a Celtics, or let's say a Miami. You really don't want to go ahead down 0-1 because you gave a flat effort. That just is not a good way to start off each and every round.
Agreed. No, obviously you would rather no. You'd rather, everybody wants to. Put
if you lose a close game, that's one thing, but
right.
Give the effort, and we haven't seen it in the first 2 rounds in that first game. So what can the Lakers do to try to go ahead and fend it off?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's bubble life is not conducive to keeping yourself sharp. You know, you're in a strange place. You have all sorts of different habits. Top-notch athletes are legendary for having routines that keep them like in a groove and sort of focused on the task at hand. And I think that that's a riddle that the bubble has nobody's solved yet really in the bubble. I mean, the Lakers are one of the few teams that keeps advancing, that closes out their series fairly quickly. You know,
we keep getting those Iverson sweeps.
We keep getting exactly, and I'll take that, man. I'll take that. I mean, if the one thing, I mean, I think it's LeBron's, 35, Rondo's getting up there. AD plays like we were talking. James Harden has an old man game. AD has an old man, big man game. So there's times when I'm like, oh man, don't roll into his legs. He's so big. He just goes crashing to the floor, and you worry about him because he has a tendency to pick up those little nagging injuries, those little knick-knack scratches and stuff. I think that you might have to go to some of the younger, hungrier guys earlier, maybe in game one, to like get the energy up. But then you're running the risk of our younger, hungrier guys are all playoff rookies and don't have the savvy.
They're not playoff rookies anymore.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. This is going to be, that's been their first quarterfinals, first semifinals. It'll be their first conference finals, and then should we make it, first NBA finals. And like, I've been completely and utterly pleased with Caruso and Kuzma's effort, especially on defense, but generally their poise in general. Caruso's always been steady. He never really gets into it with the refs. Kuzma has a tendency to get into the refs a little bit and lose focus a little bit. And I feel like he's really toned that down this year to his betterment across the board. And I think it speaks to his maturity. I think it speaks to the culture on the team, both what the players who are there create, guys like Rondo and LeBron who've been all the way, know what it takes. Danny Green, been all the way, know what it takes. Whether he's playing well or not, there's knowledge that can be gleaned there. And they've done great. I think that it's like for more than anything, I think it's just the old man legs on our team. We got a lot of old man guys in the starting lineup. Like, Danny Green's getting up there, Rondo's getting up there, LeBron's getting up there. It's a lot to stay sharp for like 4 or 5 days, and I think that's part of the problem. I think also when teams come out of a 7-game series and they've won, they're on cloud 9. They're riding a wave, and all waves crash. And the Lakers maybe have been lucky to like have that wave crash in game 1 and not suffer like a 2-game, 3-game hole or 3-1 hole or something like that. But I do think that even if we lose game 1 against the Clippers, and I'm calling it now, that if Zubats is starting, McGee is starting.
I think so too.
It's going to be rough, especially if Denver pushes them to 7 games. The Clippers are just going to have that. They'll have been forged by that fire, and they'll be riding that wave, and it'll be up to the Lakers to, adapt after. Should they lose game 1, they have to adapt. I mean, I do think that the Lakers are. I don't like to use gambling terms because there's not a lot of it's not like, but like there's a good gambler is willing to lose a hand to increase the odds that people will go in more on down the line so that they can win the overall, take the most money home. And I think that the Lakers have that kind of mentality in some regards, and that, you know, they've got a lot of smart guys. And a loss against the Clippers a loss against the Lakers is going to give them a lot of game film to go over and see what they can take away and change. And in a way, maybe even a loss is better because it's a more learning. Like, you know, they're going to come out hungrier. I'm not advocating for us to, you know, lose game one as a strategy. It's a terrible strategy. I'd much rather us win all the games and not give LT a hard time.
You got LakerTom rolling right now.
No, I know. He's gonna have he's like, listen, my wife can only take so much yelling,
His
and
blood pressure machine is gonna start going up again.
His bionic heart is gonna tell him like, hey man, you gotta like kick it into second gear, hit the yerba mate and not the coffee. But you know, I'm just saying that it's not the worst thing. I don't see it as a bad thing. I mean, it's not a great thing, but I think losses provide our team with information and fire. And you could argue, and you wouldn't be wrong, that as professional athletes, they should show up with fire on game one, and they should show up ready to play, and with fire. But, you know, reality has a funny way of interceding with what everybody wants. And so that's my take. I mean, I won't be surprised if if that Denver Clippers series goes 7 games, whoever comes out of it probably takes game one against the Lakers after a 4 or 5 day layoff, and for a variety of reasons, but mostly I think because of bubble life.
LakerTom, you're on mute or something.
You're on mute, LT.
Yeah, your volume is gone.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. And Jamie Sweet couldn't earlier, so maybe that was good for him.
First off, I totally disagree with everything that Jamie's saying there.
What a shock.
Let me start by saying that the reason we lost game one to the Blazers and game one to the Rockets was because we started JaVale McGee. And we did not have good starts to either one of those games. We were behind in the first corner. We were behind when McGee went to the bench. The single biggest thing is that we're not going to make that mistake against the Clippers because Frank is going to start the same lineup he did the last 2 games because he wants to get off to a good start. The players aren't going to be lackadaisical because they know this is the Clippers. This is the NBA Finals by all intents and purposes when you play the Clippers, and you do not want to go down 1-0-1. You need to play this kind of defense and this kind of offense that we played in the last 2 games if you want to beat the Clippers, because their whole strategy is to clog the paint, to prevent LeBron and AD from attacking, to do drop coverage, to go under the screens, and to have Zubac just sit in there. And the best way to beat them is to spread the ball out, to play 5 out, to play a fast defense, to make Zubac the liability and run him off of the court and get a big lead on the Clippers the same way as we did against the Rockets.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about that as a preview coming up when it finally becomes 100% official. So we don't want to go ahead and put, you know, the barn in front of the horse or the horse in front of the barn or whatever the adage will be. You know, I will tell you, the cart in front of somewhere, okay, whatever, it's in the parking lot right now. So we want to go ahead right now and say, you know what, we'll go ahead.
I'm going to blame Jamie if we lose the first game.
Yes, well, we're going to go ahead and do a major preview because we've got some days off here in our near future. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a major preview once everything is finalized. I know CC805 had a great question, which I've been dying to talk more about. And I think this is probably the best time of the show that Rafael and I like to talk about. I think I'm going to call it the Twitter portion of the program because we're going to talk about as the game was finalized and just going through the motions in the last quarter and a half, and the Lakers have built up as much as a 30-point lead. Tension started to get really just started to get really bad between some players. And sure enough, wouldn't know, what a surprise, it would happen between Rajon Rondo and also Russell Westbrook. And cooler heads didn't prevail to the point where Rajon Rondo's brother, who is also, I found out, charged of the, the hair salon that's there. Yeah, the barbershop that's there. It's just, you know what? It's just incredible to see that they were both so adamant to the point where Rajon Rondo's brother got kicked out of the game. So, my friend, I know Twitter, and I've been watching Twitter right now for the past hour and a half or so, talk about Rajon Rondo's brother at length, because this has been a great source of amusement for them. But I want to hear your thoughts on this whole just frustrations, letting it happen, letting overflow. You know, a guy that talks so much smack like Russell Westbrook and a guy that talks so much smack like Rajon Rondo, it was inevitable for them to go ahead and face off against each other.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what I read was his brother must have called Westbrook trash, and there's no crowd there, so you can definitely hear it. I mean, I've been to like G League games where there's nobody there, and the family of a player calls another player, and you can hear it. Like it's. So I don't think it's much. I don't think it's too big of a story.
It's Twitter. It's Twitter fodder, my friend. It's just Twitter.
Yeah, because the game was the blowout. I think
the big story is Rondo didn't throw a punch and didn't get kicked out. That was what I was worried about.
But Russ gets into these altercations, verbal altercations, but he's never been one to like throw a punch or fight. He's just
Rondo.
Yeah, that's just not. Rondo's been in
Rondo Wood though. That's the problem.
Rondo Wood and the Morris Markeith Wood. But speaking of that, I kind of want to change the subject a little bit, talking about altercations.
Okay.
The Morris twins, their motto is family over everything, right? That's their thing. You go on IG, their name is, one of them is 4star13. If there is an altercation in the series, what happens if Dwight hard fouls Marcus?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or Marcus hard fouls somebody.
Right. What happens?
It's going to be like LeBron James pulling Chris Paul off of Rondo a couple, like that first season, remember? And everybody's like, why is LeBron James like hugging Chris Paul and not like standing up for his teammate? It's going to be something like
notice
that.
LeBron protected and took over guarding Westbrook in that game just in order to make sure that Rondo didn't do something stupid and get himself kicked out of 2 or 3 games with a suspension.
But now you got twin brothers who their relationship and how close they are has been well documented. I mean, I believe they share a bank account, and if I'm not mistaken, they live together.
They share a bank account? Do you really think that's true?
Yeah, they said that one of them took a bigger deal so the other one so they could stay together, and it was all in one account when they were in Phoenix. And then I've even heard that one of the reasons they had never been separated before until they went to
ratio now, though.
What's that?
The ratio of their salaries is 20-2 now.
Right. Yeah. But I think they had never been separated before until they got to the NBA. And
Marcus might throw the first punch and to protect his brother then.
Yeah, right. And one of them, the one that was in Houston, he was struggling in Houston. And they put him down, they sent him down to the G League, and they were like, he's struggling adjusting to, without being together. And my mom is a twin, so I get it a little bit because I know like the closeness. And so once they got to Phoenix, they started playing well, and then they were like, well, in Phoenix, they needed to separate them because they were too close. So now they both end up in LA, which to me was, I think once Marcus went, Markeith probably asked for a buyout so he could go there. And then I read they live together in LA. So what happens? It's the Western Conference Finals. There's going to be some type of altercation involving Marcus.
Yep.
What does Markeith do?
That's why McGee's starting, baby. No.
What?
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. And I think my prediction is Dwight and Marcus. And I know LakerTom probably doesn't want to see Dwight's feet touch the floor in the series. But Dwight and Marcus will get into some tangle up. Words will be exchanged. And I wonder what happens.
That will be maybe the biggest question of the series.
That's a good question, Rafael.
Marcus and Rondo. I think about it. Marcus and Rondo, chances of altercation high. Marcus and Dwight, chances of altercation high. Markeith and Pat Beverly, high.
Very high.
So what?
Rondo and Beverly, very high.
Rondo and
Rondo.
Beverly.
Beverly, yeah, really.
Yeah.
That's what
So
you got. There you go, Laker Tom or Jamie. There's a great article for you. Just do odds. What are the odds? Send it out to LakerHolics.com. What are the odds of these combinations of possible fights?
We'll do a poll.
Talk
We'll
about
do a
basketball
poll.
matchups. We could have the fight matchups for the
Yes.
Fight Club.
and I think
The
Markeith.
Rebel
No,
Fight Club.
You don't mention Fight Club.
That's right.
I think
Go ahead,
Marcus is close to a suspension with his technicals.
He's got 3 points or he's got 4?
I think it's.
Because
I think he's got 4. Isn't it 6?
No,
to get
7.
Well, no, you. I'm sorry. You have 6 freebies, and then on the 7th you get booted, right?
Yeah.
You miss a game.
And
But
Rondo knows this. And Rondo knows, like, okay,
But then the league is going to give every allowance.
It could be playoff Rondo's big move.
But doesn't it get reset for the finals or no? No, it just gets reset for the playoffs.
No,
It's
I'm sure Draymond Green wishes got reset for the final.
Yeah,
exactly. But on that seventh one, it has to be something truly legitimate, where like going way overboard because the league will be
like Mark has already done twice.
After.
Stepping on a guy's heel who's injured.
Or Draymond kneeing people in the nuts like that wasn't that the one that got him booted finally? Like it was like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I think he got a tech for calling LeBron the B word. I think he got a tech for that, and that counted.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, like CC805, you're right. Don't count out Denver yet. They did the same thing in the previous series. We'll see tomorrow. It's going to be an early game. Guys, before we head on out, I just want to go ahead and make a scheduling note. I'm going to come on tomorrow at 12:30 Pacific-ish when that game's over. Just want to let everybody know the wrap-up will be there. Rafael or anybody else who wants
to go. What time is that game?
10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock in the morning?
Pacific time. So it's 1 o'clock Eastern.
Dodging the NFL or what?
That is correct.
Yeah, right.
You said it right there, my friend.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's exactly why. So if that's the case, I will be coming on early in the afternoon. So you want to be out on the lookout for that. Rafael, if you want to join me, if not, I understand. No worries. I know it's kind of a funky time, but just want to give everybody heads up on that if they're watching the Clippers game. Yeah, it could go to 7 games. We'll wait and see, but it's going to be very interesting and seeing what happens for tomorrow's games. But before we head on out, guys, because we've almost hit an hour, Jamie Sweet, I'll start with you. What are 5 good things coming up from you as far as your article at LakerHolics.com?
Well, I'm not going to say everything that I'm going to put in the article, but it's definitely going to be a combination of, celebrating today's win, but also a little bit of looking forward to the rest of the playoffs and beyond. I think, we're halfway there. We're halfway to 16. I'll never forget reading that the first time I ever read about Phil writing 16 on the board before the playoffs started and being like, that's the only number that matters, man. Like we get 16 W's. I don't care the process by which we get there is, that's what we got to do. So, and also, I shout out to the Rockets. I know that their lollipop guild didn't come through for them, and I do think they need some kind of center, and I think that they're going to be back and better next season. James Harden is a transcendental scorer, and I always feel bad when great players get knocked out of the playoffs because you like to see the best players. And so just, hats off to the Rockets. They did their best. And but the other thing is going to be I want to just real quick. I really appreciate both you, Gerald, and Rafael for all the stuff you put up on the site. I love listening to the wrap-ups. I love listening to I love the mock drafts. I think it's all a lot of fun, and there's just a lot of downtime here during the apocalypse. So it's nice to have something to listen to and check out and have some debates about. So I just want to say shout out to you guys and thanks for all the stuff you do on the site.
Well, thank you very much for that. Appreciate it. LakerTom, as the mastermind behind LakerHolics.com, you go ahead and keep these guys in check, like Jamie Sweet and Sean Grice. Okay, you don't actually, but at least,
they're uncontrollable. I don't have anything to do with
Well, I don't even need to. Sometimes I don't even need to check out my LakerHolics.com. I just go to my email and I see like rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of comments. So then I go to LakerHolics.com and see what you guys have been up to. But speaking of LakerHolics.com, I know you're working on like 15,386,000 articles for LakerHolics.com. Just tell us, give us a hint on what some of those articles are going to be.
Well, you know, the nice thing about having a little bit of time off is that you can think about things beyond the playoffs, like the off season, what's going to happen. I mean, I know Rafael's always focused on the draft, so.
And you're focused on Chris Paul coming to the Lakers.
Yeah, well, I do have a Chris Paul article completely done, ready, waiting for a gap in the play so that I can publish it.
LakerTom has so many bullets in
I
the
know.
chamber.
Oh my God! It's like I don't know. It's like a Gatling gun. Just like.
And I've also got a why we don't want to go after Giannis article that's in about half done.
So if Giannis comes knocking on our door.
So actually, it's kind of interesting because I also write a lot of articles for Medium, and basically I usually do my writing in Medium just because I like the format. It's a little easier for me than using the Gutenberg editor in WordPress. And then I basically copy and paste it over, and it works out very well. But I now use Twitter primarily to push the articles in LakerHolics, and I've been working on this program of scheduling tweets, you know, so that I can refresh the attention to the articles every couple hours, you know. So I'm working on several things like that, and actually the structure of my articles, if anybody's ever noticed, is really a whole series of tweets. In a sense, they're paragraphically designed to be publicized as tweets too. Right. So the nice thing I think is that we've got off till Wednesday, so that means that you got Sunday, Monday, and I would hope maybe the Tuesday night would be when we would have a preview podcast with the four of us.
It doesn't go 7 games.
Yeah. Well, even if it doesn't go 7 games, it's going to start on Wednesday.
No, if it goes 7 games, it starts on Friday.
Oh, does it? Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to go 7 games.
Going 7. I'm calling Clippers in 7.
We'll wait and see.
7.
But you got a lot of things
Why
going
do you
on.
always go 7, Jamie?
I was no, I went
It's
6.
not a win-loss situation.
I went Portland.
like,
I went Lakers against Portland in 6. I had Lakers
right. You know, you don't have to. It's, you know.
I think Denver's that good. I think that Jokic and Jamal, you know, I think they've got enough guys around them that are hungry and talented. You know, there's a lot of under-talented guys.
They're not going to hit 6 straight threes to start the fourth quarter as much as I'd like them to.
We'll see. I mean, you know, there's some things that the Clippers don't. The Clippers have an incredible habit of deciding that the game is over about 2/3 of the way through the game, 3/4 of they hit cruise control, and it's like
they're overconfident. I think that's the only reason they blow it from overconfidence.
I mean, it's like a team
that'll go out the back door when they play the Lakers.
And you haven't gotten a game from Jamal Murray. You haven't gotten a truly Jamal Murray type game like you saw in the last.
Paul George is not going to let him have a truly Jamal Murray game. That's
a good point. No, Paul George is elite.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see on that. But it is LakerTom and Jamie's tweet. Great part.
What I was going to say, Gerald, just specifically for you, I'll probably have 2 or 3 trade articles coming out in the next 2 or 3 days.
Boy, I just can't wait.
Poor Kuzma. You know his name is
always. Kuzma and Danny, Kuzma and Danny Green might as well live on a spaceship. Like we're launching this somewhere, man.
Does not involve Kuzma.
Oh wow, amazing!
Which means
it's not going to happen then.
Somebody else to go with Chris.
Well, goodbye, Danny Green. Goodbye, Danny Green. You can see Danny Green going everywhere.
Danny's probably going.
You love Oladipo too. That's right. I forgot. You got Danny Green going everywhere. And to see where Danny Green might be headed up next, check out all of LakerTom.
I ought to do a poll on where Danny Green's going to end up. I should add that to LakerHolics.
Oh my God, that's
where is this guy? You know, like the polls that they have is where's this guy? You know, you remember these child stars where they are now. Right. I'm going to have one as where they're going to be.
Oh my god!
Well, I like the fights one better. The ones with the fights.
The fight one?
perspective fights. Yes, that one's
the-
better, I think, as far as a poll. You could do 2 polls. Who cares? You got lots of polls right there already at LakerHolics.com, and check out
It's
all
true.
the different places that LakerTom has Danny Green going today at LakerHolics.com.
Do you want that in a video series?
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I was going to make an itinerary for Danny.
I wish we could get Danny to like. I wish we could get some B-roll of like Danny like waiting at a train depot, Danny sitting at the bus stop, Danny waiting for a taxi to take him to wherever he's going.
Danny in Indiana. Danny in
Is there anybody good out there with Photoshop? Let us know.
Yeah,
LakerHolics.com.
totally.
I've been trying to recruit somebody who's good with Photoshop. I can do it. It's so painstaking. I hate to do it. It's just so much work, man.
It's a lot of work. You need to know all the hotkeys, baby.
There you go. But I'll tell you what, there's so much.
Jimmy, you know Photoshop?
Nah.
I don't know it.
No.
All of a sudden, he doesn't have any talent when it comes to that.
I'm not going to answer that question because I'm
an audiovisual man. I'm all AV.
I've got too much on my plate already. But Rafael Barlowe is also here as well, my friend. And before we head on out, and before we stop talking about all the places LakerTom has Danny Green going on LakerHolics.com, Rafael's got a tremendous site where Danny Green is not on right now, and that is NBA Draft Junkies, and not only NBA Draft Junkies.com. We'll run the Floor podcast, the NBA Draft Junkies podcast, but also his tremendous YouTube page, 12,000 plus subscribers. It is NBA Draft Junkies. And my friend, what you got cooking up there at your awesome experience, the NBA Draft Junkies?
I know I say it every night, same every day. Every day is the same, adding different profiles. And so I had mentioned before that I've opened up the floor for subscribers to come on and discuss their draft boards or their mock drafts. And so that's been pretty fun. Having different guys on and give their opinions. So I have maybe 3 or 4 set up for the next few days. And then I'll put those up, and then still trying to figure out what's the next player that I'll profile. I mean, I got like 2 months now until the draft. So I'll have to just find creative ways just to keep the content flowing. And but I'm at a point right now where the site is getting a lot of traffic. And so people are interested in, the draft talk at this time. It's kind of like an extended draft season. So I just want to take advantage of that.
And you're doing a tremendous job, and I want to give you the highest of compliments. And please, if you can, check out all the great work he's doing, including some of his guests that got some nice. They've all, what? It sounds like they're channeling their inner LakerTom with the kind of draft choices that they're making in their mock drafts. But you can check them out today at NBA Draft Junkies on YouTube. I also want to give a big thank you to CC805, Content Creators 805. You had some great comments again. Still waiting for you to come on board, my friend. So come on board. You're always welcome. The invitation and red carpet's out there for you, so you're welcome to come on at any point in time. Plus, also, if you have any questions for us, at Lakers Fast Break, LakersFastBreak at yahoo.com. Also dropped something on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, so you want to go ahead and check that out. Our latest show covers what we think are going to happen, or some of the things that we would like with Black Panther and what's going on due to the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman. We'd like to see as far as what Marvel will do with the Black Panther character. So we talk about that and a whole bunch more as we catch you up on the latest news and information in pop culture on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel, available on podcast outlets everywhere. Inside Sports Fantasy Football. If you're still looking to get into a league this weekend before week 1, go ahead and check out our latest podcast with Chris Ardieri today at Inside Sports Fantasy Football. And again, everything right here that we're doing each and every day at the NBA playoffs right here at the Lakers Fast Break. Want to give a final shout out again to all the tens of thousands of great people that are part of the Lakers Facebook groups, all the tens of thousands of people that are part of the awesome NBA and basketball Facebook groups, which I will go ahead and share this to today. So if you get a chance, please give us some same love. Give us some of that same love as well at the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate it. And want to go ahead and any last thoughts on the way out, guys? Go ahead, LakerTom. You
Clippers in 6.
Jamie?
I wasn't sure what he said. Did you say Clippers in 6?
Lakers in 6.
Lakers against whoever. I'm just glad to be back in the Western Conference Finals. It's been way too long, and so I'm just going to enjoy this.
Win it for
I'll look
Kobe.
forward to that. I'll win it for Kobe. Win it to tie it with Boston, man. Like let's make that a thing. It's just nice to be back. It's been a long road. We went through our own process, and here we are.
10 years later, yes, it's been a nice process. But LakerTom, is that what's going to say in your tombstone when you finally go Lakers in 6?
No, he's going to say
Lakers in 6.
At my age, I just want another championship before I go, Gerald.
Oh, you're going to probably see probably 10 more. How about that? Because you're going to be around for a long time. You're too stubborn to die on us, man. You're too.
That's right.
It's too darn
stubborn. It's going to say ESPN Trade Machine is what it's going to say.
There you go. Absolutely. You pick right there. Or where will
Maybe we ought to have a trade machine of our own on the site. That would be interesting.
God.
That would be interesting. But that's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for your IT guy, Nihilus. I feel sorry for him. Rafael, it's just been great having you on the show. Jamie Sweet, LakerTom as well. Again, if you have any questions for us, at LakerTom, at Barlowe 500, at NBA Draft Junkies, Jamie Sweet on the site, Lakerholics.com, at Lakers Fast Break, CC805, sending out some love, man. All the best to you, and all the best to everyone out there watching and listening. Please register to vote. Please, let's fight this racial injustice that's going on. Please, we want to go ahead and end systemic racism as a whole. Please just go ahead and build a better world for our children, for everyone out there. This is what we can do to provide a better world for us as a whole. We want to go ahead and do that. But enjoy the games this weekend. We'll be back tomorrow right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.